Hello? Anybody out there?
And we are live.
Howdy, everybody.
Episode 12 of the Musty Wargamers. Hello, everyone.
And we're live at a new episode, coming live from the Thunderstruck Dome.
And within the chat room, first in is Clark. Thank you for joining us, Clark.
Been talking a lot here.
He
all
says,
the way from Canada. I think Clark is in Canada, I think.
Yeah. So, Clark, if you know, I know you have a question about these being scheduled. When we do schedule them way in advance, what you'll do, if you go on the person's page that you know it's going to be that week, it'll at a minimum it'll show it there. That's usually what happens. Not sure what's changed in your experience, but yeah. So, and also on the Musty Wargamers Facebook page, we always announce it a couple of days in advance. We usually have a post. We're starting to put them at the top too, or where they're at, and when they're always usually the same time. But yeah. So this week we have an interesting show. Before we get into the topics, just go over to Rusty. What have you been up to, Rusty? Both either painting and or gaming. What's new with you?
Well, haven't been. It's a zombie apocalypse. Everybody's been hiding out. Our local game stores are all closed, or shut down in one way or another. They say, do not have more than 10 people in your groups. Okay, so that's a lot of our games.
That's part of our topic tonight.
Yeah. So yeah, I haven't been doing much gaming. I started doing some painting here, which I'm not sure if I did. When's the last time I did an update on these things?
I've seen some stuff on Facebook.
Yeah, I put it up on Facebook.
Nice.
The Danish fleet here.
Mm-hmm.
Like this battleship right here.
Yeah.
I got doing some battleships, some gunships.
Nice. I like the water I could see on those little ones.
Yeah, I'll show them in a second here. They're just like a cruiser.
Okay.
And then we got the water tokens. These are the PT boats.
Mm-hmm.
They're really small.
I like that with the water and that looks good.
It's like they're cruising at high speed and we're frothing up the water pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got some of these little airships that I've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
I got the colors on those. Those are done. And then we have the dirigible aircraft carriers.
Cool.
So they go floating through the air and carry their aircraft around.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been working. My project got kind of put on a hold because I ran out of paint that I needed to finish these. So I had to eventually get over to the game shop and wait for a time when they were open, and because they've gone to limited hours.
Mm-hmm.
Due to everything. So I got over there today and picked up some paint. So now I can get back to doing more work on them because I ran out of grays. So now I have to get involved on that again. So that's what it was been that. And then with my wife being home, she's a teacher. So she has has 4 weeks off. Unlike you guys up there, you said you have the rest of the year off?
For the kids, yeah.
Yeah.
The kids are actually off for the rest of the school year.
And so when it's like every day's now the weekend. And on the weekend, she wants like, hey, do this, do this, do this. It's like, it's not summer break yet. So you have to realize I'm working. So you got to leave me alone. So that's pretty much what's been going on around here. And hopefully I will be getting involved in some more stuff here. So either tonight or probably tomorrow I'll get back into finishing up some more of that Dystopian Wars project that I've been working on. Get that done. Then back to my bolt action stuff. And hopefully here, Dan Booman is a big bolt action player too, so maybe I can get him involved sometime.
Oh, that'd be cool. What do you have for your musty drink tonight?
This may seem weird, but it's themed.
Oh, I was gonna do that and I didn't. I actually got to the food store this morning and I went really early and I didn't think to pick some up. That's very appropriate.
Yeah, I picked this up today. So
nice.
Since I was up, and I'm just gonna see if it's as bad as I remember it tasting.
Oh, it's a smooth drink. It's nothing wrong with it. It is what it is. It's a kind of light drink. It's not far, very different. Actually, if you held it up next to what I have tonight, it probably doesn't look much different.
Yeah. It's kind of bland. Not much flavor.
Well, if you're used to a strong taste like your IPA or whatever.
Yeah, if I had an IPA and drank this, I wouldn't know there was any flavor. This would be like, oh, that's a nice colored water when you drink it.
See, I still like a light Pilsner. Like, I still like a refreshing sort of drink.
Yeah. Even my lawnmower beers I drink have more strength or taste to it. So.
Oh, is that right? Well, before I do what I'm up to here, it looks like Chris over at Walkabout Games, he's like, did you get your musket and tomahawks? And no, I ordered with Brigade Games, and so I never...
it's swimming across the pond.
Well, because there are actually folks in Quebec and Canada that have received it from North Star. And that, the thing is that I thought it'd be a good idea to order from the North American distributor for the Kickstarter, which is Brigade Games. What I kind of thought, like I just assumed, was that they would at least prioritize, like North Star Games, sending the Kickstarter over to Brigade Games, like before they start sending it to all their customers, like that they would do something, because they are the official North American distributor of the Kickstarter. Yeah. Instead, what appears to have happened is, and I'm not upset about it because it's really not a big deal, but what appears is that they actually sent it even after where they've sent to their other customers. So there are people in North America receiving the Kickstarter, and Brigade Games hasn't even received it yet to send to the people that ordered from them. So basically, I'm probably 2 to 3 weeks out from getting the rules from folks that otherwise would have gotten it. And so whatever, it is what it is. I'm not that worried about it. I've already got most of my miniatures painted up, so that I'll be playing it in my table. I'll be playing it immediately when it arrives. So not really a big deal. And Chris says that he sees other people getting them, so he's twitching to get his. He ordered from Brigade as well. Yeah, I'll have to decide next time what I'm going to do when it comes to that. I don't know. I'm not planning on buying another rule set anytime soon, so it's really not a big deal for me.
You had a digital version, right?
I did, and so theoretically I could scrap something together to play it, but I've just not done that. So we'll see.
Yeah, so you're not too far out. So it's not like you can't play if you didn't want.
No, I could probably scrap something together to do a game. Just I'd have to, the cards and the tokens or whatever, I'd have to figure that out. But I have like the digital copies.
Yeah.
So for my musty drink, I have my Coors Light, which is my standard lawnmower beer, which doesn't look that much different from yours. Yeah. As far as when holding it up.
The sad thing is, I think Coors Light has more flavor than Corona.
I like both, although I'm a huge Coors Light's a brand of mine. I love my Coors Light, so I definitely can't. I definitely am biased, but I like Corona too. And so
I almost threw in a bottle of my Mickey's.
Oh, is that right?
Mickey's malt liquor.
Yep. Well,
that's one of my lawnmower beers. So.
I'll show you my what I've got here as far as stuff. So as far as things I'm working on, these aren't that impressive to look at the moment, but these are my Infinity miniatures. Now,
last time I seen those, they were white. So
yeah, that's right. And this is just one coat of base paint, nothing special, no highlighting, no nothing, and not even all the base paint's done. But I am going to be doing camo on them. So a lot of these guys have this sort of yellow ochre kind of look on them. it's all going to be camouflage. So that's really just going to be the base for the camouflage, and then it's going to have lots of other colors on there.
Yeah.
And then, I'm going to be highlighting up the green quite a bit more. But like all that yellow ochre is going to be camo. And so, yeah, I'm enjoying painting them. It's new for me.
That's one thing people don't realize is like if you do camo, you have to bring all the highlights out on the base color first, then you put the camo on.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, if you're gonna, yeah, absolutely. Now the green won't be camo, so it won't have highlight. I mean, it'll be a highlight, but it won't have camo on it. But that yellow ochre, yeah, I guess you're right, because you're not going to get a chance to do it later.
Yeah.
So, but I do like the miniatures. It's very different than painting my other forest. That's very brightly colored, like blues, like in greens or blue and white mainly. And it's very different than this. This is much more traditional military style color, I guess, and that I'm going for. And it's kind of cool. They'll look really different on the table, which will be neat. So, yeah. So that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment. I'm thinking I'm going to do MODOK, which I've showed off from Marvel very soon. And I'm also debating. I'm thinking about joining Vic's Miniatures. He's got a little... what is it? A little thing where he kind of pulled out the color wheel and he recommended to everyone, maybe try a project where you just try 2 primary colors in black and white and just randomly roll on the color wheel. He's got a video up and he's just painting a miniature with that. I thought it'd be kind of fun to do, just experiment working with different, mixing and colors and just trying to work with a limited
palette.
Yeah, limited palette, but trying to really work with the variety. I thought it was an interesting exercise, so I might actually enter that and do a miniature of that.
Yeah,
so,
that'd be interesting.
Yeah. So let's see here. We've got some other discussion. Looks like Chris has said he's waiting for his stuff. He's drinking Kilkenny and favorite faction. That's his favorite faction for Infinity, the Ariadna or the Pano. I'm assuming you mean the Ariadna, the ones that I just showed, not my other one, the Pano. Yeah, I mean, for people that like traditional military color schemes in science fiction, I think they are a nice faction to paint up.
Yeah. Kilkenny is what, Irish ale?
Yes, I believe so. Isn't it?
I think,
is it an Irish red ale?
Yeah, it's a red ale. It's been a long time since I had some. Irish red ale is one of the ones that I brew up myself. So I like a red ale.
Yeah. Killian's Red was one of the big ones when I was in the U.S. They don't have it in Canada, to my knowledge, at least not where I'm at. Yeah. But that was quite popular back in the day.
Yeah. Well, it used to be Coors Extra Gold, and then they renamed it.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, that's weird. Oh, gosh. Because I drank both, and I never knew that. That's really funny, because I drank Coors Extra Gold like when I was in high school. And then when Killian's Red came out, it was like this new thing. I completely duped me on that.
Yeah, it was back when, because I used to buy Extra Gold by the case.
Yeah.
That was my favorite just drinking beer that I had. Buy it by the case, really cheap. And then they decided that the whole craft beer thing started taking off. Then they changed the name to
Killian's Red.
Yeah, Killian's Red. Changed it, and like, oh, okay.
Added some red dye to it.
Yeah. And so it's still Coors, but it's now that you can only buy it in a 6-pack versus buying it in a case. And then when they sold out, Budweiser now owns Coors, so it's like, well, not very often. It's like, Budweiser owns this too. So
yeah, well, when you get to the big beer, it all is owned by very few companies now.
Yeah, it's one of those things where they went around and started. Think about it. Budweiser is a monopoly. They don't own that. The reason they don't get broke up as a monopoly because there's enough craft beer breweries out there that take up a nice chunk of the market to keep themselves from being busted up.
Mm-hmm.
But they own about everything.
Well, with that, why don't we get to our first topic?
All right.
So I have a little bit. I get this. It's not coronavirus, believe it. You're not going to believe me, but I always get this winter cough, like dry cough. It's like where I don't feel sick at all. I don't have any congestion or anything. I've got a little bit in my lungs tonight from all the being inside with the constant heating going on, the actual low humidity. But unfortunately, it makes it really hard if you go out of the house because everybody thinks that you're going to basically give them the coronavirus. So.
Well, we don't have to worry about that dry air right now because it is pouring rain outside.
Oh, yeah. Well, so tonight's topic is on topic with the coronavirus, is this idea of how we already kind of talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but how is wargaming and our hobby life, like both the wargaming, like the gaming part, as well as our hobby life, changing given this new reality of like the last couple of weeks that where it's really seemed to be setting in, really across the globe. And so, I think actually this is sort of a really big topic. It really can enter into a lot of areas of things. And so, I don't know, like, what is your first thoughts, in the beginning of your experience? And also, I guess we could get to where we think it's going to go down the road too, maybe after we have a little more discussion of how it's affecting us now.
Well, at the moment, we know that it's been closing off cons because we've lost Adepticon already. We've lost Salute is already closed. It's not happening this year. So we got the big conventions around the country are I think Adepticon is our third largest gaming convention. Maybe it's the fourth. I think it's the fourth or maybe fifth. We have Historicon and Cold Wars, I think, are maybe bigger. I think Historicon is bigger. That's like number 3.
Is that right?
Yeah. And let's say Knight's Pantry said, not enough whiskey. Hey. It's one of those things where you, like I said, it's like I had to schedule a time where I could go to my local shop because, everything has got limited hours now. A lot of places are going to, if you're this age group, you can come during this time period so no one else is around. It's like right now, it's like if you are 60 years and older, you can come to the shop at between 10 and 12. Now, if you're younger, that you have to go at noon or between these hours and stuff, because they want to make sure that you're not interacting with people that will, pass on the flu onto someone else. So that is some of the biggest things. So you have to work your way around as you have to think about quarantine, self-quarantine is that they like to call it. Everybody's self-quarantining now. Yeah. So that also goes with your local gaming groups too, because if a family or group is self-quarantined, you have somebody that you're within your household. It's like, I'm 55, so I'm getting up into that age group where it could be a problem. And being diabetic also. So I was like, okay, so I probably shouldn't be going out as much as I should and staying away from people because I'm in high risk. Right. I have some factors that make it high risk, so I should stay away from people. So, yeah.
So how about your daily life with your hobbying? And so you mentioned the gaming piece, you're obviously not gaming as much.
Yeah. So I'm not getting the games in. It's like typically we have at least a game a week or every other week or something of that nature. Right now, it's like no one wants to do anything because, some of the guys, they don't want anybody coming over because, one of them has his daughter lives with him and he's the same age as me. His granddaughter was just born, back in November. So he doesn't want anybody around with the youngster, for that aspect of it. So, which I can understand, they don't want to have anybody around that can bring something in, cause havoc. But others, like in my case, now I have my wife hanging around. So it's kind of actually hindered my daily work schedule in some ways, because now she's around. It's like, what are you doing? It's like interrupting me. Paintus interruptus, as you call it.
And so is that interfering with your productivity and your hobby?
Yes, it has.
Okay.
With her being around, it's like you always see. I've been watching some of these videos on Facebook and YouTube where it's like, it's day 2 alone as they're bouncing off the wall. No, it's like, yeah, after a couple hours, I realized I have this person sitting next to me, and that's my wife. I didn't understand where'd she come from? She was a nice person. That type of thing. But it gets, when you're not used to having somebody around all the time. It's like during this, when summer break happens, I kind of gear myself, because you're not going to be as productive and you're going to be out doing more things. You get into that mindset that's going to happen. But with this being dropped on you like a ton of bricks, is like, oh, by the way, there's not going to be anybody. We're not teaching. We're shutting school down for the next month. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's thanks.
Yeah. Well,
how about you?
Well, it's interesting. You brought up some good points. I think you laid out a lot of the things, like when you talked about the cons. I saw, speaking of the cons, and the various shows not happening, some of the vendors are actually going to get hit. The little vendors in particular are going to get really hit hard on this. I mean, I've had seen smaller vendors, kind of saying like, they kind of schedule their business cycle and their projects to rely on some of these bigger shows in order to make money and to support some of the projects they do. And, some of them don't do this full time, with the smaller companies. And so they rely on it and they want it to at least pay for itself as opposed to actually subsidizing it, of course, as a business. And so I think in some cases it's tough, because I think whenever something like this happens, people can go a number of different ways in the way they decide to spend their money. But it has crossed my mind at times to sort of pull back, like on spending, for sure. And then just work on the lead mount. It's a perfect opportunity when something like this happens to take all those things that you really have always wanted to do, that you purchased and you still like, but you just put on a shelf because something new came out and distracted you. This is a perfect time to go back and start grabbing stuff out of the lead mountain, because we all have, or the plastic pile, whatever you want to call it, but we all have so much that we can do. And but then I also think to myself, by not spending at all on the hobby, then actually it becomes a little difficult with, the people we rely upon in the industry to actually provide, products, because they may not be around if everybody takes that view, like they could end them, like if everybody takes that view. So then I kind of think about just like, what's the balance, as far as investing in the projects that I do and things like that, because I don't want to, hurt people's business by just not spending at all over the next 6 months to a year. But I also know that I likely have no problem with the amount of stuff I could paint over that time without buying a thing, as far as miniatures. And so, so that's kind of an interesting component of it. Like you mentioned, the wargaming piece, the tabletop socializing, going down to the club has really been hit hard for this. Most clubs, like I know my local gaming store, which is huge and has the Century Box and has a huge gaming area, they've closed off their gaming area. They've made it such that, you could just go in and buy, but they're not having like a social gaming area. They're also, I believe, trying to work with people to do other things where you could potentially place your order in advance and just go and pick it up, like, and not have to, necessarily browse. And so they're trying to still remain open and viable, but also not contributing to the spread, by actually having a community gaming area.
One thing about the community gaming area being closed for a shop, that also eliminates their impulse buying aspect of it. Because if you have somebody playing, let's say Magic or Pokemon or whatever, and somebody's playing, and it's like there's always that every time if like I go into the shop on those game nights, there's always somebody buying stuff and then opening them up and doing, so they're losing that probably some of that business right there. So that's going to hurt them.
Yeah. Now, my life-wise, when it comes to hobbying, I haven't really seen much difference in my quality time to paint yet. And part of that is my core trade is in healthcare. And so I do actually have a job where I'm basically expected to be there regardless. Like I'm not, being sent home or anything like that. And it's not closing. So I haven't really seen much of a change there. But even in my free time that I have, I've noticed some of the projects that I'm involved with outside of the healthcare stuff, other things that I do, things that were the best way I could phrase it is areas that I was seeing problems with where there wasn't enough activity on a project. Once the coronavirus hits, it slows it down that much further, and so I've been like spending a lot of time getting on people that are working from home to finish off the things that should have been finished off a month ago, and not using the coronavirus like too much of as an excuse, because it's affected all of our lives, but many of us are still working from home. And so I've been spending more time to get some progress on some things that were already behind, to try to get them at least up to speed given the current environment. And so it's been tricky. And so I haven't I've spent a lot of time in my days doing stuff like that. I haven't had like that much more time to hobby in my situation. Having said that, I think it will settle down a bit, and I am looking forward to trying to get some things done. I'm always trying to look back at my miniatures in my Lead Mountain. Like I have World of Twilight has been on my mind a lot. I know we've chatted at times and I've brought it up at times. Infinity was something and it was to game, but I'm not, other than playing maybe with my daughter at the house, I'm not sure how much gaming I'm really going to get done with it outside of the house. But that's sort of really also a project that was on the back burner. I have lots that I can do. And then new things as well, but yeah, I in some ways I find it fun to go back into the Lead Mountain, like to have any impetus at all to pull out stuff that I already have is, to me, it almost makes me giddy. I'm kind of like, get me focused, on what I already have. Don't distract me too much with what's out there. And something like this just pulls me in a little bit, and so I actually find that as a good thing.
Yeah. I'm hoping that here in the next week or so that things will kind of get back to normal around here. Have the wife, it's like, you do have this thing called the Hallmark Channel. You can go back to watching that up in your room. Just take the laptop and go, it's like, you don't have to spend all your time talking with me, please.
This is you're experiencing what retirement does to people at times.
Yeah. It's like I go through this during the summertime. Usually it's like mid-June or so when it's June and July. That's why my productivity usually goes down in June and July, because my wife comes home and we get out and start doing stuff. Mm-hmm. That's typically when people take vacation and do stuff, run around anyway. So it doesn't really bother me too much. But right now it's like, this is not the time that's supposed to happen. Now, one thing that with everything closing down, I'm not sure how far out this will happen, because we're looking at, because I also do car shows and stuff like that, go to those things. That's another hobby aspect I like doing. And I've noticed that a lot of the car shows around the country have closed, and they're have shut down all the way up through June already.
Oh.
So I don't know. Right now, we haven't heard from Origins or Gen Con what's going to happen with those two.
And actually, it's a good point when you bring it up, because I didn't mention it. But for those, some of you may know, I think we've talked about it on the last show, but I was ready to actually sign up for Gen Con. And literally last week, I was talking to Rusty on Wednesday of last week about like signing up on Thursday. And then right before all hell broke loose, like where a lot of things started changing, where they were starting, I actually was like, I'm not feeling great about buying airline tickets right now. I was thinking, I feel like between a room, airline tickets, and the show itself, I'm going to have to get my money back somehow. I'm going to be like worried about getting my money back because I wasn't feeling good about the way things were going. But
Yep.
then sure enough, you know, I'm kind of glad I didn't at this point because yeah, I just, even though Gen Con hasn't been officially canceled, I'm not that confident that it's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm at the moment, I probably would expect Origins to be closed.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say right now we're at probably 50% chance
Okay.
with Gen Con being shut down.
Yeah.
And even if it is, who knows how many people are actually going to go. So it could be a ghost. And they'd probably need to have so many people show up to begin with to even make their money to keep the convention open. So that might be a thing where they go, oh, we're not doing it this year just because we're not sure if we're going to get the people to come.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I was excited too. It was going to be the first time I ever went to it. I was really quite excited because I've never been to a big wargaming show. There really aren't any within driving distance to where I live that I'm aware of.
Yeah, it's like for you, probably the closest convention. I don't know if they have one in Denver or there's like the small fry type conventions. They have one in like Minneapolis. I think there's one in Denver, but they're not well known.
And I've heard of one possibly in Edmonton, which isn't far at all for me to go to, but I don't really know that much about it. Yeah, I don't think it's nothing of the size of like Gen Con, but so I guess it's possible I could go there. But
yeah, that's typically, it's like a lot of these these conventions are on a smaller scale where they're very regional or just statewide. In your case, your province.
Yeah.
So it's not like they are well known that you're going to draw a lot of people. So now, for one thing, for me, is that there's a lot of talk. Every year I take 2 weeks off for like the state fair around here, and I make a nice penny. And right now they're talking about, oh, we may not have the state fair this year. So like, oh, I'll be like one of these businesses where I expect, a lot of these smaller companies. I'm just basically a small company when it comes to that. So it could take a hit because every year you notice that after the fair, there's always a big Forge World project pops its head up every year because it's like I got this chunk of money comes in, and so I take a small percentage and then throw it into projects that I like to I want to build.
Right.
So this year may not even see anything new. So
yeah, no, and I can't imagine a big state fair like that. When does it go on? Is it July?
August.
Oh, okay. So it's still
first week of August.
It's still a little ways out.
Yeah. But who knows? It's like the whole mentality is right now. Our state is you can't have more than 10. Our governor said no more than 10 people can be together. All businesses have to be closed. There's no gatherings of anything going on. It's like you can't do anything. And so every restaurant, everything, the only way you can get any outcoming food is like if you go order it. And either take out or have it delivered. So Grubhub and those things, places where they do the delivery.
Yeah.
So that they're making money, but.
So what do you actually? We've got Knight's Pantry made a comment. He says that his local business dried up, but online orders have gone up in part because they have time at home to work on business. So that's good.
Yeah, he does a lot of jewelry on the side. So that's one of those things where he does that kind of stuff, for Renaissance fairs and whatnot. So that could be another thing that's like another aspect of it is like, you got Renaissance fairs or basically like conventions, but, everybody's reenacting. So I used to do that. And that's something that very similar, there's going to be groups that usually starts kicking off in May, June time frame. So I can see a lot of those being shut down too.
Right. So what do you think? So right now we talked a little bit about, obviously we're not gaming as much. It's affecting our home life in different ways for different people. I'm sure just having more people around and just things like that. Talked a little bit about choice of projects and things and even buying a little bit. What do you think as this goes out and it's just, out months from now, if it's still going on like this, what do you think that's going to be the effect on both you and maybe the wargaming industry and the hobby?
Well, right now in the short term, like I said, I was at my game shop today, and they did have some stuff on sale, because if people are not coming in to buy stuff, you've got to figure out ways to bring people in. And if you have something that, it was a good example. It's like, oh, this stuff's 50% off. Okay, I'm buying something, because I was thinking about buying some of this stuff, but now it's 50% off. It's like I walked out the door with about $60 worth of goods, which is I was only planning on spending like $15 worth. So by putting a sale on, they're getting some of their money back, which is something that they need.
Right. Looks like Vic's Miniatures just jumped in the room. Hey, Victor. Hey, Victor. Yeah. We just mentioned your project. I was talking about actually joining in. I gave you a little plug not that long ago. Yeah. You were saying, Rusty?
Yeah, in the short term, I could see game shops and different companies putting stuff on sale. I think Warlord Games put an email out just yesterday, I think it was, saying to the fact that, hey, keep your eye out, because there'll be like spot sales going on where some item will be on sale because they probably are looking at maybe a drop in sales too, because if people are not going out impulse buying, they have to force a way to make people impulse buy.
Well, one of the things for sure is, whether it be a store like your local store, which has inventory, but then it relies on cash flow to come in, or whether it be a place like Warlord Games, which has also inventory, but also research and development and product design that they're paying people like right now to do, and then also requires a cash flow to come in. Both of them are seeing probably a drop in cash flow. And to some degree, even if it means getting some of your cost back, through selling miniatures at cost, may be feasible if you don't have any cash flow coming in, because, you gotta pay people salaries and stuff, right?
Yeah, bringing some type of money in is better than nothing. And if you were able to
I think you froze on me there, Mr. Freeze. Are you still there? Gonna poke him. Uh-oh. So as I was saying, I think he's coming back. Are you back? You're back? Okay.
Wow.
You froze on me there.
Teleported to the space station again.
That's right. So you were saying?
I was saying, basically, like you said, any type of business has to figure out what their bottom line is and base costs that they have. And it's like you say, look at Warlord Games for that matter. It's like, okay, it costs us, a sprue may cost us, $2 to produce and market, etc. And we usually sell it for $5. And okay, we're going to have a sprue sale where we're going to still sell it for, let's say, $3 a sprue. Well, they're not making.
Uh-oh. I think it might be my turn. I know Rusty said there's a storm coming into where he lives, and it's maybe affecting his electrical or his internet tonight. I don't know how it's going, but once I get Rusty, for those of you, I see you back. I was just going to mention again, Victor's in the room. Vic's Miniatures, he's got this cool little challenge where you choose a primary color on the color wheel by rolling 2 dice, and it actually forces you to work with the color wheel, which he's done a lot of stuff on his channel with that, also with oil paints, which I find very interesting, because a lot of people, we don't use oil paints on miniatures, but he's kind of experimented with different mediums. And I think I would definitely have to choose a miniature among my lead pile that then would be most suitable. Like, I don't want to paint like a robot, like earthy tones, because I'm forced to use earthy tones. But I definitely think what I'm going to do, if I'm likely going to do this challenge is I'm going to, on video, roll my dice so people can see it. I was even thinking of live streaming it so they don't know I'm not cheating. And then I'll have to think of like grab a miniature that would most be suitable for what I end up with. So yeah, I think that it'd be kind of interesting. So I think you've kind of answered that, Musty. But in between freezing up.
It's getting cold in here.
When we talk about the business piece, I don't really know who's going to be most at danger in this, because like immediately people think of the small companies just because they think of, oh, like they're a smaller company, they need the money and this and that. But in some cases, somebody has a job and like they do this on the side, and like they make a certain amount of inventory, but they're like the worst case scenario is they just can't maintain the inventory. They have to just sort of shelve the company a little bit, and just do their regular work, and then there are others that maybe already invested in something where they were depending on something coming in. I don't know, like the larger companies, like the really larger companies don't have that luxury to perhaps just shelve it, people, that's like everybody's full-time salary for their employees. They may have a year's worth of plans underway that they've invested in, and they're relying on next quarters. Like they may even be like Games Workshop where they're publicly traded. And, it's just, you don't have a nimble way of necessarily dealing with this. And so then you have all your mid-sized companies that could be anywhere in between. Like they could be running their business like a larger company and like being very forward thinking, investing out, like utilizing their credit as much as possible for future expansion of their company, versus they could be a mid-sized company that's just very successful, but doesn't really maintain a lot of debt and kind of their expansion's much slower. It really just depends on the way they're running it. And so I find it really interesting because over the span of all these companies, if this goes out 6 months, let's say, that's quite significant. We could really see a wide variety of responses from within our industry. And if you remember, it's not that long ago where we saw a lot of companies close without this. Like we saw like the company that for your Dystopian Wars was a big one I was chatting with you about.
Spartan Games.
Yeah, like Spartan Games when they closed. And then the company that had the game, the War of the Worlds style game, it was like kind of like War of the Worlds with like, had like tanks. And I really thought the game was very cool. I was really sad to see that company go under, even though it wasn't a company I was personally buying from. I liked looking at their stuff and seeing other people play with those games. And so something like this is quite more monumental as a shock to all industries. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to see, not in a good way interesting, but like, it's going to be kind of interesting, but in some ways sad, unfortunately, if it really affects people negatively.
I can see if you go down the big list of we got the 800-pound gorilla. Games Workshop, I could see not putting out a lot of new product.
Mm-hmm.
They'll just hunker back on what is existing material and not develop and try to put any money into putting any new product out that would be hitting the shelf. That would cost them money to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see them, okay, we have what we have for now. We'll just ride this out. Mm-hmm. Because they're probably still doing well with their current materials that they have on the market. Because your 40K fanboys and your Age of Sigmar types. I got one of my friends, Jesse. He just this week bought a whole bunch of what's the skink type guys, the lizardmen.
Yep.
For Age of Sigmar, he just bought a whole bunch of stuff for those guys this week. So he's like, hey, I ordered all this stuff and it came in and picked it up. So he sent me all the pictures. So there are people buying that stuff.
Yeah.
Now it's but the smaller companies it's kind of like the two-edged sword, because I used to be a small company myself. And I made most of my money going to conventions.
Yeah, yeah.
If I didn't go to a convention, it's like is like you go to convention, you see your money go up, and then no convention, and it kind of plateaus at the bottom. You're just like something trickle out here, trickle out there, trickle out there. Go to convention, it goes back up, then it goes back down. It's like you got really steep spikes. It's like, it's like you got long valley and a spike, and a long valley and a spike. That was your money income that would come in. And without the conventions, you're going to see like the smaller companies. Well, I guess I'm not going to the convention that weekend, so I got to rely on my regular job. And a lot of the small companies, like you said, we had jobs. That was our main income. The other stuff was like, it was kind of a hobby company type thing, literally a hobby company. Yeah. And then when you get into the mid-sized companies, you're looking at like I consider Warlord Games not really a big company, like on the scale of Games Workshop. It's getting there, but and then like Mantic's another one. But I sat to say, was it Battlefront for Flames of War? Those are the three companies that are worker and Privateer Press. I think Privateer Press is probably more into the Games Workshop arena in some ways. They're close to that. Yeah. But not quite. And those are those companies right there that I mentioned are going to be the ones that are probably going to be hit hardest with this. Yeah.
So on the so we talked a little bit about the industry side. I'm curious what folks in the chat room think about it, like the things we've talked about as far as the industry side. But well, maybe they're possibly going to share their thoughts. What do you think about the gaming side in the sense of my mind has been sort of turned to a little bit more remote gaming because of what's been going on. Now, remote gaming and tabletop gaming has been fairly marginal up until now, like in my mind. Now, there is simulators that exist online, and I've even seen people kick out some videos about them, things that are already in existence, but almost like a reminder. Now, Infinity has a really nice remote gaming system, so much so that like you can play on an actual visual tabletop and see the miniatures. It's not even like something really low tech where it's just like a box, like, in the name or something. Like it's like pretty high tech. Like it's almost like a video game. Where the miniatures aren't running around, but you can place the miniature and it visually looks like the miniature you play with on an Infinity table with Infinity style terrain, like something you would see at a tournament. You can play remotely against another player. And
that's all digital?
Yeah, it's on it. Like you can play on the PC, I believe.
Okay.
And so I could send you now, if any of you, I'll plug his channel, I guess, but some of you that are into Infinity may know of a channel, and I believe the name is called Vol C, I think is the name. It's Vol SC is the name of the channel. And he does some really great Infinity videos. And he's essentially put up a video recently specifically on playing Infinity. It is how to play Infinity on Tabletop Simulator. And it was actually put up yesterday. And if you know what I'll do is I'll share my screen. Just give me 1 second here. And I'm going to mute this.
Yeah, that would be kind of interesting, as if you're, and that goes back to one of our topics before, where we're moving into that capability of having online gaming. Where,
sorry, I'm just going to share my screen here, like I said. So in order to do that, I go like this. Just tell me.
Yeah, I think you got to go to single by yourself.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. There you go.
So are you seeing my? Are you seeing my?
I did see it for a second there.
Okay. How about now? Do you see it?
No.
Okay.
Oh, did you? I think the last time you opened up another. It opened up a third panel.
Okay. Well, I'll try it one more time and then I won't.
There we go.
Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay. So this is Valcy's YouTube channel, and take a look at this. This is actually like playing a tabletop game, playing Infinity.
Oh,
you see this? And
I'll try. It looks like the Infinity terrain.
Yeah, you see,
It
look,
comes
you're
in
actually
those.
playing in a room. You're playing in a game room. Like you could be in a game room. It's an infinity game room, and it literally on the wall has like some cheat stuff there that you can look at your statistics.
Yeah.
Like almost like you're, but yeah, like just looking at it here, showing he's showing how you play. Look at the miniature there. The actual miniatures are the actual miniatures from the game. And so you're moving your miniature around. It's really ideal. I've never done this before, but I was looking at it thinking this is really cool.
Yeah, that is something. If you're able to do that with someone else at the same time, so you could have fog of war and true line of sight going on.
Yep. All right, so I'm going to jump out of this here. Okay.
Yeah, type in the live comments what the name of that channel is.
Okay, I'll put it on there. Let me go to his channel. It's Vol SC, and the YouTube address is here. There you go. Everybody should be able to see it soon. And I'll throw it up on the screen.
Throw it
here.
up there. There you go.
Yeah. So, as someone who's
okay,
yeah, as somebody that's wanting to play a little bit of Infinity, I've watched some of his videos, and I've seen in the past him show a little bit of this, but I think this is a bit more of an in-depth video. But that kind of technology to me seems like it could be a real answer for some people to be able to play against another opponent, get a little bit of a fix, of I'd have to look a little more into it. Like I'm assuming it's on the PC. I don't know if you could use it on other platforms if people play on a PlayStation or something. I'm assuming this is for the PC. But yeah. So that's one thing that I think is a nice answer. Also, Tabletop Commanders has been doing some stuff in the past where they've experimented a bit with remote playing of games where you would have somebody host a game. And you'd have like a video camera kind of showing the overall table, and then basically having other people through live streaming, just like you and I are here, playing a game. So like you wouldn't have the miniatures in front of you, but you would control like one of the armies. And like that's kind of interesting too. I think they've worked out some kinks with it, and they're essentially doing that too.
I seen Mini Wargaming.
Mm-hmm.
They did that. They used to do that for a while before they said it got too hard, where they'd have remote games for people that couldn't come in and play. They would do it through a video that way.
Yeah.
Exactly. It worked, but it said it was time consuming.
Dan Boomin has shown up. Hello, Dan, and he's got a comment here. He's saying, "I'm thinking of playing some solo games. I never have, but always thought it would be fun. The computer simulators don't really capture a tabletop game for me." Now, I actually solo gaming appeals to me too, and I do think there's nothing wrong with actually going that route. Because obviously you don't have an opponent, so solo gaming has an appeal to try. And yeah, you certainly are going to have the tactile feel and like a lot of the elements that we all like about the gaming. It's going to open up something a little different in some ways. The thing I think that is appealing about solo gaming is that you can start to think to yourself about AI and just like, how do I make a decision for both sides? And there's a lot of games, board games and tabletop games that provide answers to that. And I think that that could be fun thing to add to your repertoire, because I like that. I've always liked the idea of like rolling dice and having, dice affect, overall strategies that I might take for another side and things like that, just to try out. And so, yeah, I think that's appealing too. The thing I like about the tabletop simulator, though, is that particularly if it's done well, is that even though it's not the exact same thing, the same way, like solo gaming doesn't give you the same exact experience as playing against an opponent. True enough, it doesn't give you the tactile feel and the things that we like about the physical element of our hobby. It's still, if it's a game you really like let's say, Dan, I know you like Warhammer Fantasy and you like bolt action. There may be, and it might it might not be for you, but for many people, just having that avenue to play the game you really love, even if it isn't exactly the way you want to play it, but it lets you play against a friend, and it's just something like halfway in between. It might allow just some socializing and being able to, in the environment of what you like, and even just being able to work on the rules a bit and list building and just doing different things that you enjoy doing. And I could see the appeal, but it certainly would only be for certain people.
Yeah, back in the day when a lot of the video games were, you're able to play them, against somebody. Well, a lot of them you still do, but you had your group of friends. It's like, okay, you couldn't get together, but on the weekends. But we got an hour or two at night where you could sit down and get on a computer game and play head to head. It was like to play by kind of. All right, we'll play. Somebody's the host. All right, bring it up, and play maybe 10 turns, and then save it, and then come back another night and a night or two later. You're able to play a lot of them. And I could see something like this where you just showed if you're able to save that, where it's like where all the miniatures are, and then come back the next day and it's like, okay, let's play another couple turns type of thing.
Yeah. We got a comment on that from Fixed Miniatures. I tend to agree with Dan about the simulator versus picking up and moving a figure. However, it does allow more time to play than tabletop. Yeah.
Especially if you're, and this is a great example of if you have somebody, let's say an individual lives with their parents, or their parents, let's just say your elderly parent had moved in because they can't live by themselves. Some of my age might, I got parents that are in their 70, 80 years old. To say one of them is living with you, and so you can't go out or have anybody come in, so you're kind of quarantined the house. And if something like this, you're able to play a miniature game digitally like that you were showing, that would be great for individuals. Like, I can't leave the house, but if I can do this, in this time and what we've got going on with this whole quarantine thing, it'd be great.
Yeah. And it might be just that a combination of things too, right? Like I see an appeal for all of it. Like even when I have opportunity to play against other opponents, I've really often thought that I'd like to set up some solo games that are ongoing games that are at my house that I could just have a table where it's set up.
Yeah.
Kind of, and we've talked about this, kind of like the chess game in Blade Runner, where you have it set up in the corner, and even though he's playing against someone else in the movie, this idea that you have a constant game going or something that you're doing where you can have it set up. It takes a lot of time to set up, but you can let it sit and just play around every once in a while and then just leave it there. To me, is very appealing. But then also this other thing here is very appealing too, if you're wanting to just work the rules against somebody else and just, be able to play a game that you really enjoy. And if there's a decent quality simulator, I could see how that would be appealing for certain people.
Back in the day, you may not remember this, but there used to be play by mail.
Oh, well, the Iberian Wars is what I was most interested in, the Conan game, where you play it by mail. I always wanted to do that as a little kid because I saw it in magazines where you could kind of take control of one country within the Conan universe and represent that country, and I never did get to play that.
There was a time we played by mail where you'd have an opponent that would be clear across the country, and you would actually, it's like you have everything set up and everything, a lot of the games had little digital numbers on them. And it's like, all right, you're just like, okay, I'm moving this piece to here, this piece to this location, this piece. And you look at it, it's like, okay, he's moved it here, you moved it. Okay. So you're playing chess by mail equivalent. So you move your pieces. It was board games is what we were doing. I was playing a board game that way.
Right.
And then you would have a random, typically it was like, okay, the stock market would be what you would use at this New York Stock Exchange page. This stock will be at this, look at the last digital number would be what you would roll. Okay, so it's like this here, where you would pre-pick what things would be for the coming day. So on this day, this is what's going to be the number of the results. for this combat, and they go, okay, that was it. Oh, you lost. Okay, you lose this or this, and that's how it worked. And you would play months at a time. So it'd be a week you do a turn would take roughly about every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it was something you could set up, and if you had the space to lay it out, you could take a long time playing it.
So now you could do it by email and not actually have to wait for the postage.
Yeah. So now it's like you could play a couple turns a day, that way.
Yeah, or you could do it by text, just like play constantly.
How technology advanced.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how things change. I mean, I'm assuming, because they say trade is going to continue to go, and if too many businesses don't go under. I mean, to me, one of the things, regardless of whether we have miniatures to paint, is hobby supplies. Like you mentioned, you ran out of paint. That's one of the things that we need the most sometimes is our supplies. Yeah. And so hopefully we don't run out in that area. Some of the stuff that's coming from China, I suppose, could have some disruption too.
Well, yeah, it's a good example is I'm a ham operator, and I needed a new battery for one of my handsets, my HTs. And I ordered it in the first part of December, and I got it last week.
Okay.
And I mentioned it. It took that long. It was like, oh, it got shipped. And then the person I ordered it from on eBay said, I asked him, like, do you wouldn't happen to have tracking number for this? And it's like, no, it's someplace in China. It's like they refunded my money and it showed up.
Yeah, that happens.
And then we're talking 4 months after I ordered it, it finally showed up.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. And
because it sat someplace in a warehouse or on a boat in China waiting to come across, and it finally did.
Yeah, and that's going to take longer and longer now. Yeah. So, but even for a while there, at least, I know Games Workshop was sourcing a lot of its materials from China. And so things were affecting things, like, even stuff that we wouldn't have thought, like we're ordering it from Games Workshop, but it's actually, they're getting a lot of their stuff from China. So it's, just to be competitive. And that's going to take its toll on the industry to some degree. So it'll be interesting. We've kind of talked a little bit about our personal time, both gaming and painting and choice of miniatures and how it affects the industry and how we could play remotely. And I think we've kind of talked about this topic quite a bit, but it'll be almost one that we should kind of do this again in 6 months. You know what I mean? To see what it looks like in 6 months from now. Because if you asked me 2 weeks ago
what this would look like,
I never would have thought things would have gone the way they have, like from 2 weeks ago.
Because it's a good example is I was on the store Friday to go grocery shop. I shop every Friday to get my groceries on Friday. And stores were fine. The only thing that was short supply, you go into the paper aisle and it's like, well, okay. Obviously the TP's been gone for about a week or two now. It's like for some unknown reason, I had no idea. And everything else is good. And then I went to, was it yesterday? My wife and I was like, well, we need to go pick some stuff up for her mom who's in a retirement home. They quarantine them off, so you could buy the stuff and then you have to take it to their office and drop it off, and then they'll deliver it for them. And so we picked the stuff up, and we went into the grocery store and we're looking around, and it's like, oh my God. I've never seen, you see the pictures of like a hurricane's coming. Where it's like locusts come in and just cleaned everything out. I'm looking aisle upon aisle upon aisle. This in 4 days, roughly 4 or 5 days time, everything's gone. Yeah. And I'm like, what is wrong with you people?
And I think we all kind of seen that story. Things are just starting to come back here, but the only way you can get it is to go really early in the morning. Like you can't actually wait till the end of the day, to try to get it because it's sold out by then, but they're restocking. And so that is kind of good. But hopefully things will straighten out as that initial fear and panic is subsided, and people have their supplies. So we have another topic this evening. We're kind of our first topic has taken about an hour, which is normal. And now we have another topic for the last half hour or so of the show, which is related. And this one was Rusty, so I'm going to let him kind of introduce this topic.
All right. Uh-oh, TP is...
Dan says TP is the antidote to the product. It's a life-saving. It's the antidote to the virus. It's a life-saving product. People are making masks out of it, right?
Yeah.
So.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's the new Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I got a topic is related to apocalypse. All right, so we're kind of living in the zombie virus apocalypse, and we wanted to set up what would be a good gaming. We always talk about what are good gaming backdrops, right? Mm-hmm. And right now, I think we're living in a gaming backdrop right now. We're living it on a world scale. Yeah, you always you look at like the Walking Dead. We're almost there. And what would be a good example is, all right.
H.P. Lovecraft. Let me blow up your screen there. Let's see here.
H.P. Lovecraft. Blood-curdling tales of horror and the macabre. All right.
Yeah.
Good book.
Yes.
If you ever get an opportunity, read some H.P. Lovecraft. And I was discussing, I've been sending you lots of pictures. Who would win? We're sitting in right now. We're facing it.
That's next week, right? Between those two, that's next show. Don't reveal that yet. That's what you were going to say, right? You're going to give our next topic up. Have you only had one beer? Don't give it all away. Okay, so
all right, so for our next, we're going to save that topic, the verse
for next week. So we're talking about genres for post-apocalyptic games. What would make good ones? We could talk about ones we like right now. What are ones that would be good in the future? What is your kind of favorite thing? I mean, it's funny. This is sort of a big topic in some ways. Like in some ways, you could look at it at a surface level, and at the surface level, I think of the zombie apocalypse, because in modern culture, when you mention like post-apocalyptic kind of things within our hobby and like the genres, I think of first like Walking Dead, Day of the Dead, like all of these kind of things. But to be honest, when I was thinking about it, the whole idea of a post-apocalyptic genre, like, because I'm really into movies, like a lot of people, and really it's the opportunity to take our world, our society, our modern thing, and say that it's kind of done or extremely challenged, and something new that's totally different is happening in this genre or movie. Mm-hmm. And so in the case of like The Walking Dead, it's a virus apocalypse, and now we have zombies everywhere, and everybody's life's changed, but you still are seeing houses and cars. It's still, basically our modern society. But what I was thinking about it, like one of my favorites is sort of like the original Planet of the Apes movie. Yeah. This idea that the timeline is funny, I'll admit, because if you go to the different Planet of the Apes movies, in some of them it's like in the future, and some of them it's in the past, and some of them it's like how did the apes become, but if you take the original, you find out in the end of the movie that this world, you see, I think it's the New York City, right? Like you see the Statue of Liberty, right? I believe is at the end, where, he realizes that. That's right. This was our world. Like this was our world. So that's a post-apocalyptic world run by apes, that they happen to travel to. And so, honestly, that's like a great kind of setting, I think, whether or not it's setting for a game, like it could be actually. There's no reason why, if you're really big into Planet of the Apes, it could be like a miniature game, be kind of cool. And so, what are good backdrops for that? I mean,
Vic put one out, which is one of my favorites.
Yeah, put that up there. Mad Max.
That's an excellent. I was just talking the other night, Tuesday night. I was on the face chatting with one of my buddies who lives in town, who doesn't understand. It's like I start talking about this whole thing. We're doing a live stream and videos and talking about games. And he's like, I don't get it. He's one of those guys. He's like, you try to explain to him, and he's like, I don't understand why you do these things. It's like, what is wrong with you? It's like, I do the same thing he does, but I play games too. And he's just like, it's like, I don't get it. What do you get out of it? It's an escape.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're sitting there chatting with him. I was like, all right, have you picked up your football pads yet? And he was like, football pads? I was like, you're collected your spare tires yet? And he was like, spare tire? What? I was like, you have your Sawzall, right? He said, yeah, I got a Sawzall. Well, I got mine too. You got some spare wire and stuff like that and rivet gun? He's like, where are you going with this? Mad Max, baby. He's like, oh, I get it now. It's like, yeah, we're going to be running around with our pads and we'll put, tires for body armor and everything.
Dan's thrown up too, The 100, which I've not seen, but I've heard other people talk about. Is that the one where they fall from the sky?
Yeah, they started off in a space station. They spent like 100 years in orbit, and then they come back down 100 years after the big apocalypse.
Right. Now, talking about Mad Max, like the beginning, the first Mad Max, which I like a lot of them. I'm not saying like it's got to be the first, but if you actually watch the first one, it's very different because it's very recognizable, like in the sense of it's in sort of like Australia, like more like modern day Australia, but you see like these.
The very first Mad Max movie takes place. Let's just say it could be happening right now. It's right. Society is like 6 months from now has broken down because of the virus is just really going rampant,
Yeah.
And everything is collapsed.
Right.
That is the first movie. Could be 6 months from now.
And I like that. I like all of it. Like, cause I grew up in the 80s with Thunderdome and stuff. So I like all of it. But the thing I liked about the first one, in some ways, it's a bit more chilling in its adventure to me, in the sense that if you're like in a kitchen that could have been like your grandmother's kitchen, and all of a sudden these maniacs like pull up into the driveway, with like all these vehicles and stuff. It's a bit like a horror movie, in some ways. Whereas Thunderdome is like another world, right? Like it's really cool.
Yeah, you get and the Road Warriors #2.
Mr. Freeze, he'll probably time out and then come back. Okay, you're back.
Had to open up another one.
Yeah, there you go.
They didn't want to see me struggling. But yeah, the Road Warrior takes place after the collapse, and then they had the first nuclear war.
Yeah.
So everything has really gone to hell in a handbasket.
Right.
And then Thunderdome takes place about 20 years after Mad Max.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, and so they're all cool, but they're all a little different in the way they do it, and so it takes.
I tried to convince my wife, because right now in Redbox, the new remake of Mad Max, is back in the Redbox, and it's like, rent that. She goes like, why? Because I want to watch it.
Yeah. So one of the things though that I think. It's probably obvious, but just it was interesting to me. It's just this whole idea, as I mentioned earlier, that you have the advantage of it not being something like totally feeling new, in the sense of even though it's hard to actually have something completely unique, like Avatar or something. I guess I have not. I've never seen Avatar, believe it or not. Like a lot of people think I'm nuts, but from what I understand of it, it does kind of create like a world, in it. When you create something from scratch, where like people don't use forks and knives, like they use something else that doesn't exist. Like it's hard. I mean, it's hard to world build and have absolutely no semblance of our culture, at all. So everybody most of the time does a degree, like of some sort of degree. Like even in Star Wars, somebody might drink out of a cup, that looks like a cup, Granted, you might say you can argue that they would have invented a cup, but even if it was a separate reality. But I think the post-apocalyptic culture has the advantage of taking like our society, something that you totally can relate to, but then saying something happened to make it really interesting,
I just watched the Dark Tower this week. Was it Tuesday? I think it was.
Yep.
That we were talking about it.
Yep.
And the Dark Tower, obviously part of the movie takes place in New York City, which is our time, modern. Nothing's wrong other than some oddball stuff. But they have the parallel worlds going on. And then part of it takes place in an apocalypse world.
Yeah.
So you have that where you do have an apocalypse, but they have sorcery too that's involved in psychers. And so you have, they do have technology aspects that they still can carry some of the aspects of societies going on, but then they've still have enhanced stuff. You got like the gunslingers and stuff like that, and they're still using like the gunslinger's basically psychic. He's able to wield his firearm.
Yeah.
And then Clark here is wait for society to break down. Setting can be Mad Max a week after social distancing. Yeah.
Yeah. If you notice, I didn't say a word to you about the Dark Tower when you told me you were watching it, and it wasn't because I didn't want to spoil it only. Part of it too is I thought that was just a travesty, that movie. I did not like it. I love the books. Like I absolutely love the books, but I thought the movie was almost in every way really bad. But that was just me.
My wife liked it.
Okay. But had she hadn't read the books though, maybe?
She never read the books, but she took it for face value.
Value, yeah. It's hard because when you know what it was supposed to be like, when you know what it's supposed to be like, well, it was like nothing like the books. I mean, it was it was a shadow of the books. So.
Yeah, that's a problem though. Is too many movies. The only thing they have in common is the title of the book.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? The Maze and Burn. What was it? Those the trilogy of movies that came out in the last decade, where the kids were all locked up in this maze and they had to figure out how to get out.
Maze Runner.
Yeah, that might be it.
Well, I've never seen it, but I know that's one of them.
So that's basically a post-apocalyptic world. Yeah. Everyone is driving Mad Max cars, Priuses. Perfectly around fine cities, raiding people, stores of toilet paper.
I guarantee you, without having experienced it myself, I'm sure that there are some people that have had some negative experiences. Like, in the sense of like if you have a shopping cart and you walk away from it with toilet paper in it, how many people do you think have stolen a toilet paper from somebody else's cart? I'm sure it's happened.
Oh, it's like I was last week at the store, and like I said, I went last Friday and I picked up, like, oh yeah, they had some toilet paper. So I grabbed, a 6-pack of it, and somebody had seen me grab I got the last one, right?
Mm-hmm.
The last one off the shelf. I'm like, oh, they got toilet paper. We're going to need some of this. And it's like the person is like rushing down and they just see me. The look they gave me is like, if they could have stabbed me with a knife, they probably would have. And it was like wailing. It's like, hey, like
they did. They're wailing at you.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like it's almost Mad Max out there. It's society is cracking. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, so Victor says Escape from New York. Now, Escape from New York, I absolutely love that, and that's true. Like. It doesn't have to be supernatural to be post-apocalyptic too, right? Granted, Mad Max was a good, illustration of that. But like Escape from New York is great because it's just sort of like, almost like gang warfare, right? Well, his next comment, we'll get more into that, but it's almost like street thugs, like, society breakdown, like gang groups of people that are sort of, you even have, I forget the name of the ones that live underground in Escape from New York, and they actually like rip people through the floors and are crawling, like they come out at night. Yeah. Like that was like one of the scary parts of Escape from New York. But you can have they could be like Tyranids, right? Like they could be Tyranids.
Or aliens.
Like
the movie Aliens, where they pop up and pull the guys down. Well, the whole premise of the Escape from New York is that they turned New York City, put the big wall around it, turned it into a big prison system. It's like a big penal colony. It's like throw them in there and let them eat each other.
Yeah.
And we just have to make sure they don't escape out. If they escape out, then we just blow them away.
Yeah.
But the rest of society is basically still going, but we take the dregs of our society and toss them in there.
Right.
And they did the same thing to LA. They turned New York and LA into these penal colonies on one side of the Mississippi and the other side of the Mississippi.
I never even tried to watch the second one. I don't know. It could be good, but I never tried to watch it.
Just go back and watch the first one.
Yeah, I know. I didn't want it when I saw him like on a surfboard or something like that. I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not ruining the first one. I'm not ruining the first one. Victor also says you could take the premise from the movie The Warriors and make it post-apocalyptic too. Yeah, absolutely. Like in this idea that people aren't living by. You've got the right number. You need one more, actually.
I need one more. I haven't drank that much yet.
Well, you kind of take the premise that society is not behaving normally, and that's all. In some ways, it kind of achieves the same thing in some ways. But you were mentioning games, and we're having much more fun about talking about genres. And but as far as games go, it to me, you could have it almost any way you want, in the sense that it could be just like the games we play now, where you have two factions squaring off in a post-apocalyptic world. It could be the road warrior, where you have a car chase, like literally, like Gaslands or something. Like you could have a car wars thing. It could be very much a scenario where you have to get in within 24 hours, or else the thing blows up in your neck, like in Escape from New York, right? Like it could be a scenario mission based. You could almost do anything you want within the setting, in the same way you would do any other tabletop game, I think.
Yeah, it could be tabletop game, it could be board game, it can be RPG.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been plenty of times when we were playing RPGs, we're doing the sci-fi versions of them. It's just like Star something. I drew on a blank at the
Star Frontiers?
Yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You could play in that setting where you're playing role-playing, and you have kind of an apocalyptic setting where you drop on a world that's gone through a nuclear holocaust, and you got to pick up some type of goods or something that are only found on this planet, and you got to fight your way in, fight your way out, and you got all these roving gangs that are either trying to eat you or use you for something else or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know which one? I'm not a huge fan of the Terminator setting, not because I don't like the movie Terminator, I do, but I'm not a big fan of the sequels, and I'm not I'm not a huge Terminator fan, but Terminator is definitely in some ways post-apocalyptic, in the sense that its premise is that there's going to be a huge nuclear war, and there's people that come back from it. There's flashbacks or a foreshadowing of scenes to the future, and there's even, I think, in some of the movies they touch on the future. But I actually always thought a video game would be cool. Granted, I know we're not a video game channel here, and I'm not a huge game player, but this idea that you're the Terminator rather than the good guys, and that you randomly get thrown in the game into different eras of time. So like you're sent randomly to different places to achieve an objective. And then like you don't, like you have to figure out like what you need to do or whatever, but like basically you could be sent to modern times, you could be more powerful, but sent to like medieval times or something, or like anything, like
you're like the Black Knight,
like you're kind of going back in time or forward in time or anything randomly, like and I thought that would be actually kind of cool. Granted, that's not really post-apocalyptic in theme, but the Terminator setting certainly is.
Now the most you get your two types. Post-apocalyptic, you're going to either have Holocaust due to atomic warfare or a virus. That's your two common ones. And did you see where they were talking about The Walking Dead, where the virus came from?
No, I didn't.
The guy that designed it or started whatever, you said it came from space.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a space virus.
Oh, so did they ever reveal that in the comic or the show?
I think it was a comic.
And they did reveal that, huh?
Yeah.
Or okay, that's interesting. Huh.
I was reading where he said, "Yeah, where'd that come from? Space."
It's the easy answer, right?
It's an alien bug. It's actually an alien festation.
Right.
It kills his host and reanimates it.
Yeah.
Takes it over.
So yeah, it's a lot of interesting themes. They have a number. When Walking Dead was becoming popular, a number of games came out that were zombie-based games.
Yeah.
World War Z was one of them, right? Came out with a game. Walking Dead came out with a game. Zombicide, the original Zombicide. Like, there's just a lot of them, and they've been very popular with people.
The whole premise of a lot of those is just survival. It's like what I've seen is like at the convention playing a little bit one time. It was like, which one is Zombicide? Where maybe it's the other one. Where the amount of noise you make increases it's like if you shoot a gun, you attract so many zombies. If the number of things you do keep increasing the numbers that come at you. So
yeah,
you have your choices. You can go full melee, or you just increase it and just go full dead. Eventually, they're going to run your ass over. So that is a pretty common theme when it comes to post-apocalyptic styles, where you got the zombies, and it doesn't necessarily have to be zombies.
Could be aliens.
You look at what's the really popular one where they had the atomic war, and there's lots of mutations going on. It's a real popular video game. My son plays it.
It's not Gears of War, is it?
Huh?
Gears of War, or?
Well, he plays that one too, but that's kind of a apocalyptic game too, where you got the alien life forms come to life. Dead of Winter is a cool board game.
I don't know that one.
You have to tell us what that one's about. Dead of Winter. I don't remember seeing that one. Pulp Alley and Her Majesty's Name are good rules for that style play. Yeah. My son was here, and I had to ask him. But it is it's like society advanced to the point where they had plasma weapons, power armor, and stuff on Earth.
Sounds like
and then they
I know of.
Yeah, it sounds almost like we're their dark times when of 40K.
Yeah.
Right up to the point, and then they had the massive wars and society collapsed inward.
Yeah.
And you start off with your basic. I watch my son play it enough times. Nuka-Cola is one of the things in there. It's like Coca-Cola, but they call it Nuka-Cola.
Oh, are you talking about Fallout?
Fallout. There.
Yeah. Fallout.
Eventually, it would come to somebody.
Well, the thing is, I have one of the Fallout games. I didn't play it a lot. It was mainly because I'm a big Skyrim fan that I got it, but I kind of like Skyrim. That's my thing.
Yeah.
But, one of the things that's interesting, and to be honest, I don't find like I get the fear in tabletop games like I do in like the unsettlingness of a movie or even a book when I get absorbed into it. Like a game, I'm not usually looking to get that kind of emotion from the experience or the genre, although it's kind of cool to have a game where maybe it plays on a certain genre, just for fun. And so I'm mainly looking for fun. And so if you're wanting painting opportunities to do a lot of like rubble and weathering on broken down cars and things like that, then like I've seen people do some beautiful school buses and like post-apocalyptic games where they just look so real. I mean, like all of the weathering and stuff. I think that's really great. I mean, there's a lot you can do with the setting that could be really fun. Having said that, though, when we talk about the emotion of the genres, I find that sometimes the scariest part for me of genres like that is the behavior of people and not the zombies. So like whether it be Walking Dead and when they deal with rival people in that scenario, they're generally, in my mind, scarier than the zombies themselves. Because a lot of folks get really scared by the jump scares and the gore and the visuals of the zombies. And there are aspects that can be kind of unnerving. But I find one of the keys to horror is oftentimes human behavior
Yeah.
that actually really scares us the most. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but one of the most disturbing movies I've ever watched, and in a good way, I have to admit. Sometimes I ask myself why I like to be disturbed from a movie. If a director, if a director can invoke an emotion in me, sometimes I actually appreciate it, even if it is like a negative emotion. And the movie The Road, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the gentleman that played Aragorn on Lord of the Rings, I forget the actor's name, but he's the main character.
Oh yeah, that
yeah.
one. Oof.
So that movie, the people in it, I won't give it away because many people may not have watched it compared to, let's say, some of the other bigger movies we've seen. That movie, out of all movies that I've seen in the last 10 years, probably had some of the more shocking human behavior components to it that really was disturbing of a postmodern setting.
Well, we had some of that kind of behavior in The Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
That one season.
Yeah, and it's true. Like they definitely captured that in The Walking Dead 2 to a degree, although never to the degree but maybe it's because it was a full-blown movie that I got more of that experience, but it was just really quite good. And I think that that's kind of one of the keys to sometimes these settings too, right? It's just that sort of how people change all of a sudden, like in those kind of environments.
What would trip somebody? Well, it's kind of historically factual too.
Mm-hmm.
You look even in the 20th century that we had that going on.
Mm-hmm.
And
no. I mean, like I think they're tapping into the real capabilities of human behavior.
That is something where if you could put that into a game, where even like Escape from New York, you had that aspects of it.
You know what I think it almost has to be, and it's funny because game design is fun to talk about. Like you have more experience with it. I mean, you have experience with it versus I don't. But I like to think about that at times. And to me, how do you capture a feeling of terror or like a disturbance in a game?
How do you instill that into somebody?
And you know what? You know, one of the things I was just thinking, I just had a flash to me. Like imagine a game where you have a skirmish game, let's say, where you have a miniature that goes through a complex of NPCs, like miniatures that nobody controls, but you randomly roll. And imagine you're all of a sudden like your miniatures in a kitchen with a family, and you're expecting to be welcome to like sit down to dinner, but then all of a sudden you roll on the table and they all grab their knives and they're ready to come at you. You know, like, and it's like kids and adults, like, you know, like it's sort of like all of a sudden these pedestrians that are miniatures there are now all of a sudden coming at you with knives. Like that's where like in a tabletop game, all of a sudden you get for a split second, like, oh, that's freaky. Like, yeah, you know,
whoa, stranger, you want to come in for dinner? Sure.
Dan says that he found The Walking Dead very disturbing. The only Netflix series my wife and I quit watching. Oh, that's fair. Yeah. It is
very. The thing is, like with The Walking Dead, the zombies didn't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
They're dead. I knew they're like one fixated thing that they're coming to eat you. That's it. You know, your choice is kill them or die horribly. So, and that never bothered me. But that one season, like I was telling you about, where they was it the junction or crossroads or whatever it was? Terminal or what the heck?
Yeah, terminus.
Terminus, that's it.
Yeah.
And that was a very disturbing season.
Like, and there's even more than that too. You're right. I'll be honest with you. I actually like the whole premise for The Walking Dead, but for me, not as a comic reader of the story, but just as someone that watched through the seasons, there was a point, and I don't know if it was season 4 or 5, but there was a point where I found the themes just started to get repetitive for me.
Yeah.
And so I stopped watching because I liked the beginning seasons and like what it had to offer and the themes that it tried to present. But then I found they were becoming too repetitive, like seeing the same thing by different people and things like that, the same kind of things. And I just, all of a sudden I was kind of done. Dan said it's the human group interaction.
it's like I said, the zombies don't bother me. It's the human interaction that's the disturbing thing. That which is you're discussing is that how on a visceral level is that the dominance of some group wants to dominate one group over another to the point of exterminating it because they won't live under their thumb.
And I think we don't like to see, we don't like the idea, or we find disturbing, I think most of us, this idea that human decency and human morals change when the situation changes.
Yeah.
You know, like everything we rely upon changes all of a sudden, and the base instincts at times come to the forefront. And I think that can be disturbing, you know, definitely for sure. And
the question is how, like we said before, how do you put that into a setting where this is almost the only way you can do this is in an RPG.
The most easiest way for sure, right?
Yeah, in a board game or tabletop game system, you can get to a certain point, but that's kind of like most board games or tabletop games. It's like you get to a certain point, then it's shooting happens, and then what we see a lot of what happens it's like in The Walking Dead at the terminus is that's what the next step happens after the gunfire or the capture or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Victor says human nature ? I'm not sure which part of our discussion you were referring to there. But yeah, like, I mean, there's a philosophical topic of what is human nature. Is that the base level of human nature is what we see on these shows? Should there be no law and order in place, or is there more than one component?
Yeah, you look at Walking Dead. You watched up through. Did you watch like Negan?
I saw the beginnings of that at least. Yeah.
So you've seen where you have somebody that is like a cult figure in a way.
Yeah.
Where they take total control. They control everything. How you think, what you do, the whole aspect of your society is controlled by one person,
mm-hmm.
and he's a despot basically.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get outside the box of what he expects out of you, he's like, you can do everything within the confines of the box. He has no problem. But if you step outside that box, he's going to put you down and feed you to the wildlife.
And, you know, I think, like you were saying, RPGs create the emotional investment, you know, through the dialogue, you know, and so you can experience that more within gaming. However, tabletop games, I think they may not invoke the same kind of feelings within games, and they may not really be meant to do that. But at the same time, I think we can have fun with various settings too that are post-apocalyptical. And, you know, it could even be like, you know, human society where aliens come down are now the main race, and you just have like a small number of humans, you know, or something like that. You know, it could be even where there's no humans and it just happens to be the remnants of human Earth, you know what I mean? Like where it's happening. It could be like anything, like post-human society.
Another one would be like Battlefield Earth, that one movie that John Travolta was in. That was the book was a heck of a lot better than the movie. In that case, what was that other one? Battle of LA or something like that, where the aliens came down, hit.
You know, the very fact that Dan said he actually watched up to Negan tells me that if you know who Negan
you suffered through a lot.
Then when you say you stopped watching, it wasn't after the first season. Like you watched a lot.
If Negan was what ended it all, it's like you got through Terminus.
I even found the governor to be disturbing. Like I found I found they did that in different ways very effectively, you know, which was interesting. But then for me, a lot of the themes started to repeat a lot. It's great. I mean, I mean, in a sense, they still did it a great show. I mean, it might not be for everyone. And to be honest, we were talking about how the zombies, you know, don't bother us as much. But my wife didn't like the zombies in the sense that she never continued watching after the first season because she found that she has the type of mind that she can't stop thinking. Like when she watches something late at night, she doesn't just stop thinking about it after you shut it off.
It carries on to
and so
psychologically.
Well, she'll actually like.
Off.
Well, she'll go to sleep still kind of thinking about what she just watched. Like,
Yeah.
Just because she just has a tendency to do that. Even if she's talking to you about something else, once like you kind of stop talking, like she's kind of settling down, like you just think about it, and it's not like a very good way to go off to bed, like, to sleep, like, or whatever. And so I don't have that problem at all, because like I can stop watching something, and unless I'm really inspired by it, like a really amazing movie that I really get invested in, I tend, because oftentimes I'll watch a review of a movie after I watch a movie, because I'm kind of thinking about my own take of it and things like that, and I'll watch a review. But I can shut it off and go to sleep like no problem at all. Like, it's extremely rare that it actually affects me where I have trouble with that. Like,
yeah, it's like, to me, The Walking Dead was like, oh, Walking Dead's on, let's catch it. It's like, how these dumbasses are going to get out of it this week. That's how I always looked at it. And it's kind of like the mousetrap. It's like, we know what's going to happen to these people. It's like, it's written on the wall. It's like, okay, we got this. You look at it from the RPG aspect of it as a game master, and it's like, okay, I know what's coming. And it's like, I see the characters. Here's the NPCs doing everything around them. And it's like, oh, they're pretty much lockstepped into what's going on. But is how I always looked at it. It's like, okay, it's like, how are the writers going to make these characters escape out of it?
Yeah. And Dan brings up the point that sometimes you just don't enjoy something. Like, the character sort of just angered him, so he just didn't really find that it was entertaining at that point.
Yeah. That was pretty much, Negan was what brought it into me watching The Walking Dead too. It's like him, when he bashed in one of my favorite characters' heads, I was like,
yeah,
I can't wait for you to be dead.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's sometimes we watch something and we just don't like we were talking, it's interesting. We were talking unrelated to the apocalyptical. You had saw Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler recently.
Yeah.
And I had watched it. And where I felt the movie was done well in many respects, and that his acting was actually quite good. And I know a lot of people that really like the movie. I found that it was like a roller coaster for 2.5 hours, or such, of constant buildup and never letting you down to take a breath. And like, the entire thing was go, go, go of negativity for 2.5 hours, with great acting, a pretty interesting story, very cool sort of the way they had the setting of New York City in it. But I just felt that it wasn't relaxing. Like, I didn't like the way the movie made me feel. So in the end, I walked away from it. I couldn't stop watching it once I was an hour and a half in, because I wanted to see what happened. But when I was done, I was like, I really wish I didn't watch that, because I'm like amped up now, and I'm not relaxed at all. And I didn't really enjoy it. Whereas I know other people really quite liked it, and they actually liked it for probably the reasons I didn't like it. Like, some people just found it was like a really good movie. Like, this was a great story, a lot of great interaction, a lot of great acting. And I can't argue with that. Like, that's their opinion. But the way it made me feel, kind of like Dan said, like, Negan didn't make him feel good. Like, that movie didn't make me feel good. No, I didn't feel good after I watched it.
You're watching a train wreck in slow motion. It is slowly getting more. It's like you're sitting there, and you're up on the mountainside, and you're watching these two trains speeding up faster and faster and faster. It's like, they're on the same track. There's only one track. Why is nobody slowing down? Well, it's like, make a good decision here. Make a good. And it's like,
there's nothing slow about the movie at all.
No, we were, like I said, was watching it, and my wife was like, she just got up, walked over to the machine, and pushed the button, and kicked the disc out, and put another one in. And she put in the Dark Tower in.
Yeah.
And that was her. She's like, I can't. It's like, no, I'm not watching any more of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, he made the decision. It's like, you were sitting there making the same, like, I know where this is going. This is bad. This is bad decision. This has
got to be really bad, because I know that you got further with Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yeah.
That's the silly one I recommended to you.
Yeah.
Which was awesome. I love Hot Tub Time Machine. As much as I like serious films, if I want to laugh, it's Hot Tub Time Machine.
Now, to bring it back into the gaming aspect of it, now, if you're trying to do a tabletop game, this is type of setting a lot of times if we're trying to do something like this, where even The Walking Dead or any type of apocalyptic style system, you're going to need a third party running it almost like an RPG.
Yeah.
Try to give you that. You got somebody that's controlling the monsters or the op 4, whatever it may be, the gangs. There are different gangs. You got different people controlling different gangs. And these gangs, like in the Warriors, it's like you got this gang over here that hates this gang over here, and this gang hits this gang. This gang hits game talk. Hates this gang. So you got 4 or 5 gangs out there. You got 4 or 5 people playing each gang. And then there's you, the single superhero type that's out there, and you got to weave your way around it. And you got a game master is like trying to kind of weaving you through, helping you in a way, but having everybody else like going forward. Hey, there he is, get him! And all of a sudden, hey, we hate these guys more. Get them over there. And just like
one of my favorite funny lines from that movie. I don't even think it's one of the famous lines, but when they're in the house, the kids, and then they have the girl gang that turns on them suddenly, and then the guy gets cut by one of them, and she goes, "She cut me." And the skinny guy goes,
"No kidding."
"She cut me." I love that.
What do you expect there, buddy?
Great movie, though.
But yeah, I think that's about the only way you can get that visceral style feel is you have to have a third party almost RPGing it while you're doing a tabletop.
Yeah. So I think we've had a really good comments tonight on that, and had a lot of good discussion on post-apocalyptic games. I think that that for the most part, we're kind of getting towards the end of our hour and 45 minutes here. But do you have any last thoughts on the subject, Rusty?
Well, going right back to the very beginning of it, everybody needs to just take a deep breath, relax. 90-something% of us don't have to worry about stuff. You know, we may get a little sick, but we don't have to worry too much about it. Don't go out and hoard. Don't go buy everything out because somebody else down the line may need something that you're hoarding. So relax, breathe. That's just common sense type stuff. That's from your friendly neighborhood command bunker.
That was a deep. I was talking about the post-apocalyptic miniature games last thoughts, but I can't top that. I think we'll close on that. But what I would say is that, like usual, we always welcome people if they want to join us on the show for a future show. We do these every 2 weeks, rotating from Rusty's channel to my channel back to Rusty's channel. We do it equally. And the best way to find out about what's going on in the, for future shows, where it's going to be at and when and things, is to join the Musty Wargamer Facebook page. And so that's just pull up on Facebook, the Musty Wargamer, and just we have a group there that we're approaching 50 of us at this point, and we all put up stuff that we're working on during the week, but we also put up information about when the next show is going to be. If you're interested, let either of us know if you'd like to join in for an episode. We usually let the guest pick one of the topics. It's usually something that sort of interests them, and then we do another topic as well. And thanks for everybody for joining in. And Dan actually has a suggestion. I'll get it up on the screen here so it's part of the video. I suggest a discussion on terrain on a future show. Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, if you join the show and you have a suggestion, put it in towards the end when we're talking about that. Perfect thing that Dan did. Dan has also in the past put a topic up on the Musty Wargamers Facebook page. Dropped it in there, or else after the show is over and you're watching this at the end, and if you made it to the end after 2 hours, go ahead and put it in the comments of the channel of the show afterwards too, and we'll catch up with it, because we're always happy to have topics put out by our group out there.
Yeah, unique topics are a precious resource, actually, because now that we're in our 3rd season, going into our 4th season, we've probably done. We're in the area of 50 topics already now, so it actually becomes, you know, more and more interesting to think of new things to talk about. And so, yeah, so actually, it's a wonderful resource, the Musty community, to give us topics to talk about too. All right, everybody. Well, thanks very much for joining. And thanks to everyone in the comments. And
thanks, Dan. And thanks, Vic.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, we got a number
for
of
everybody that joined us
Clark and Chris and Scott. And I apologize if I've left anybody out. I think I've got most of us there. But thanks for everybody for joining today. All right. See you next time. Take care.
See you on my channel in 2 weeks. All right. Everybody take care.